Awesome. So, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us for this week's edition of Seal the Deal, UNLV Career Services weekly webinar where we talk about different career and professional development topics. This week, we're going to be talking about leveling up your self-awareness. We decided to continue our programming because one, we get to record it, but also we know that there's a lot happening out in the world in terms of protests and still the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. And as you know, life tries, or as much as we try to bring life back to normal, our career services team continues to do our work diligently, but keeping in mind the diverse students that we serve and wanting to make sure that we're working to combat institutional racism in our work. And so it kind of continues, and even after this, we want to make sure that we continue serving everybody. Even though we still stand in solidarity with everyone, particularly those in our Black community, we want to make sure, that we keep doing our work. And so today we have our guest, Paige Patton, who's going to be presenting. So I just want to remind you to please mute your microphone, turn your captions on if you need to. Feel free to keep your video on or off, but we will be audio only. If you have any questions, ask them via the chat so that everybody can see them. And we will be recording this presentation for online distribution. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Paige and let her take it away.
Great, thank you. Let me go ahead and present this. All right, here we go. Let me get into presentation mode here. Can you guys see my learning objectives screen clearly?
We sure can.
Yes,
awesome.
We can.
Thank you for confirming. All right, so today we're going to be talking about leveling up your self-awareness. And I thought it would help to lay out a few of our learning objectives for the next 40 minutes. So I'm going to take you guys through 5 clues to strength. So these are 5 hints that we can go through together. You can easily write them down and work on this on your own at home to work on some self-awareness on your own time. After that, we will talk about some of the background of strengths-based psychology. It's rooted under positive psychology, and I'll explain why I, one, love to teach this to people, and 2, the value of how you can use this. And 3, then we're going to talk about your own values and value statements and how you can incorporate those into some of the strengths that you've discovered through these exercises. And then we'll talk about the value of a personal brand statement and how you can incorporate all of that information together. And those brand statements can be really, really helpful if you're in the process of interviewing or trying to figure out perhaps a new career path. This can be a really productive use of your time to kind of check in of where you stand and how you want people to see you and how you show up at the workplace. And then we can wrap all of this up in a pretty little bow for you to use your past to inform your future. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. And I would like for you guys, as was previously mentioned, there is a lot going on right now. I also stand in solidarity. I'm super grateful that you guys are recording this so other people can catch it at another time. And for anyone who is just, if you kind of slid into this webinar and you're thinking about all the different roles that you play right now, all of the different hats that you wear, whether it's being a parent, being a sibling, being a leader, being a manager, being a student, all of these different hats, just go ahead and give yourself permission to just shake them off for a minute. Maybe actually shake your arms out, roll your shoulders a little bit. That can feel really, really liberating. And I want you guys to just be able to come to these next 40 minutes with a blank slate, all right? and put on one hat now. So now that you have kind of cleared your plate, let's put on this one hat of curiosity. And the reason why I say this is because a lot of times when we go through exercises of self-awareness and digging up stuff from our past, it can be really easy to just settle into a state of judgment and think, man, I wish I had done that differently, or why can't I be more of X, etc. And if there's one thing I want you guys to come out of this session today with, it's understand how you are a shiny unicorn. And I mean that so sincerely. Everyone is so unique. I'm going to help you guys understand some of the data behind proving that. And if you can come with a sense of curiosity to how unique you are, what value you bring to the table, how much you deserve to be seen as a human and, respected and valued in the workplace and not just as a worker bee, this is really, really going to serve you. These exercises will serve you if you can just observe yourself and your actions with a little bit of grace. So I appreciate you guys kind of, cleaning your slate, putting on your new hat, and let's get into this. So these are called the 5 clues to strength. And this is actually adapted from a book, which I'll tell you guys about in a few minutes. So here's what you do with these. Go ahead and write down each of these questions that I'm taking you through. So the word, kind of the definition of it isn't important, but these questions are what's important. And these, if you can go look back through your life and answer some of these questions, you'll be able to start connecting some dots of areas of strength in your life. So this first one, called yearning, the question is, what activities am I drawn to? So what activities naturally energize me? And this is kind of, if you think of yourself as a magnet, right? You have this magnetic attraction to certain activities. If you guys if you think of any fun examples and you want to share them in chat, that would be awesome. Go ahead and share them, because a lot of times your ideas, your aha moments will help other people immensely. So feel free to interrupt me and share anything in chat that comes up. I'll tell you guys, for me, a magnet of mine that I can notice when I look back now, ever since I was a little kid, has been this idea of learning. And also of learning, actually. Maybe that slip was on purpose. But I was going to say originally of teaching. And I have always been drawn to these roles of, being able to teach, being able to be a mentor, being able to be a coach. And it's so funny now that I wear this hat as coach. And I'm so drawn to anything that surrounds that aspect. So when you can learn these things that you're naturally energized by, when you can think about how these have related in your life, you can start using this intentionally for your future, right? How do you incorporate this stuff that energizes you into what you're doing in your career, or into a specific role, or even into just the work that you do in that role, right? You can go super macro and super micro with this information. All right, so our next one, called rapid learning. Your question here, your clue, is what kinds of activities do I seem to pick up quickly? So this is the idea of you can have this natural speed of anticipating steps of an activity, or acquiring a new skill, or gaining new knowledge. And it's this idea of feeling like, oh yeah, I've always known how to do this, even if you've never done it before. It's kind of that idea of you just have that knowledge inside of you. So think about any moments where you've had this level of rapid learning. And our next one, called flow. In what activities do you seem to automatically know the steps to be taken? So this idea of flow, and this might be the most relatable to a lot of people of these 5 ideas, is, we say this often, oh yeah, I was just in the flow, right? It's this feeling of timelessness almost. It's this feeling of being so immersed in an activity that you lose track of time. So that's a sign of strengths right there coming through. It's a sign of using your natural talent inside of you. Our next one is called glimpses of excellence. So during what activities have you had moments of this subconscious excellence and you think, how did I do that? A lot of times it can be hard for you to detect yourself. Sometimes you have to hear it from other people. Sometimes it takes a long time to look back and kind of realize, right? Or maybe a lot of studying other people when they've had these moments of excellence. But it's this idea of just insane talent within someone that person has really mastered this level, right? Like a higher level than average, I'll say. And you think, wow, how did I do that? I don't know if I'll say that this is a mastery level, but I used to have to write a lot of reports in my previous career. And I feel like as I was writing the report, I was in the flow. Although often I'm a huge procrastinator. So often it was like 2 a.m. So I was kind of thought, maybe I was a little loopy because I was up super late, but I was just in the flow. And I would actually read my reports the next morning to proofread them. And I would have these moments of this kind of glimpse of excellence of how did I do that? I kid you not, I would not remember writing some of the stuff that I would write in these reports, in these PowerPoint presentations. And I was kind of proud of myself. I'd be like, wow, that writing sounds pretty good. And it was this crazy feeling as if someone else had written it. So even small moments of that, if you guys pay attention to that, that's huge. You can tap into that and you can use that intentionally in the future. And our last one here is satisfaction. So this is speaking to the activities that are super energizing, that give you that buzz, and you think, when can I do that again? Often we don't think of this feeling at work, or I would say traditionally, perhaps. A long time ago, people thought you're not really supposed to enjoy work. That's why it's called work. You go and you work. And I think now a lot of people are trying to turn the tables on that. And how amazing would that be to go home every single day and think, when do I get to go do that again? Man, I'm so glad I get to go to the office or to my home office, right? My home computer, my laptop. I'm so glad I get to go and do that all over again tomorrow. That's when you're tapping into your strength with what you're doing. And so guess what? You guys can read more of this on your own. You can find this book on Amazon. I know there's a major push right now to support local bookstores. So hopefully maybe you can find it locally. I'm not quite sure on that. But this book's awesome. It's pretty short. It's easy to read. But it has some really great stories behind those questions that I asked you and great examples to help you further your learning. In this area. So I just wanted to share that with you guys in case anyone is interested to take this one step further. So let's move on to a little bit of this background, this idea of playing to your strengths, because I think I like to start with these questions to get your brains thinking kind of blue sky level, but then I think it makes sense to give you a little bit of the background. So most of the time when I ask this question to people and they say, okay, if I'm playing to my strengths, they'll say, I'm using stuff that I've learned, right? I've learned a talent, I've learned a skill, or maybe I've mastered something. The idea with this, in this context, when I'm talking about your strengths, I'm talking about how you've been utilizing your natural talents. So I'm talking about what's already written into your DNA. And this is why I'm saying, when you look back with some of those other questions that I talked about, the 5 clues of strength, so when you look back at those, oftentimes when I work with people in this area, they say, oh yeah, actually, I knew this stuff about me when I was a kid, but I just wasn't paying attention, right? So oftentimes you can connect the dots all the way back to when you were a kid or when you were a teenager, because in this context, when we're talking about strengths, again, it's stuff inside of you. It's not stuff you have to learn. Now, it's stuff that you can strengthen, right? Just like how if I'm naturally good at kicking a soccer ball, that doesn't mean all of a sudden I'm going to go to the World Cup and be amazing, right? I still have to lift weights and strengthen my muscles. I still have to practice my sprinting. I still have to learn the rules of the game and how to pass to my teammates. All of these things I'm able to use these to invest in my natural talent. And that's what I'm trying to help you guys with today, is to identify these areas of natural talent so you can invest in them. You can metaphorically lift the weights of this natural talent to grow big muscles and use it intentionally for, again, finding a new job, success in interviewing, feeling engaged in your job, feeling really connected to your team, increasing the profit for your company. All of these things are great examples. This started by this young chap right here named Don Clifton. And he's the originator. He is attributed to the beginning of strength psychology. And the reason why it's attributed to him is he was the first person to really flip this idea on its head of fixing people. And this was several decades ago when he started all of this research. And at the time, when all of these, big international research companies and leadership companies were studying effective leadership and successful management and what helped, the Fortune 100 companies get there, everybody was touting this idea of, well, you identify your employees' weaknesses and you fix them. And we kind of learned that in school a little bit, and I'm not necessarily placing blame to anybody, but we kind of pick up this idea early on that we want to be well-rounded people. But the problem with being well-rounded is we all kind of become mediocre in a certain way, right? We all kind of become average and we become similar. And so if you flip that on your head and you stop thinking about being well-rounded and you stop thinking about fixing your weaknesses, and you give yourself permission to focus on where you naturally shine and how you can shine even brighter, oh man, is that liberating. I got to tell you guys, this is why I'm so passionate teaching this, because this was huge for me. This is huge for so many of my clients. Just this first step, seriously, just opening your mind to the idea of how can I amplify what's right with me and stop worrying about all these self-help books and courses to fix what's wrong with me. I want to help you guys solidify this idea a little bit with a study that was done. So this was with the University of Nebraska, and they were actually trying to figure out different teaching methodologies. So they thought, okay, we're going to take all these high school students, and over a semester, we are going to teach these high school students how to speed read. But we're going to put some students in speed reading course A, some in course B, and some in course C. And all these different courses are using different methodologies because we want to know if one teaching methodology is more effective than another. What they learned was that the teaching methodology did not matter. What they didn't expect to learn was that there was a huge difference when they looked at the numbers of the total sample. So all the high school students, no matter which teaching course they signed up for and took, when they grouped all the students together, they realized, looking back at the data, that there was a really big difference between students who were initially average readers and students who were above average readers. And so if you look here in this chart, you can see yellow is the first test. So if you guys have taken statistics or anything like that, we have pre and post measurements, right? So this is the pre-measurement. So this is at the beginning of the semester. And you can already see a very big difference, right? 90 words per minute versus 350 words per minute. So then the students went through the semester, they tested them again. Of the average readers, so those who started at 90 words per minute, they went up to 150, which is incredible. That's a 67% increase. I don't know about you guys, but I would take it. I'm not a fast reader, and that would be amazing for me. So now, here's the fun part. What do you guys think happened with this last column that I'm going to pop up on here for the above average readers? If anyone wants to take a guess and type it in chat, go for it. So what do you think happens? Do you think that they increased? They stayed the same? They went down with their words per minute? I'll tell you guys that most people, I give this example to so many different groups of people, and almost everybody says instantly, either it only increased a tiny bit or it went down, or maybe stayed the same. But it's this idea that we have somehow internalized, and I'm not sure exactly where it came from, but we've internalized this idea that there's a cap on talent. And it turns out that if you invest in an area of natural talent, look at how amazing that is. That's a 729% increase. That's incredible. So this group, again, took the exact same courses as the other group. The only difference is they had more natural talent to begin with, right? To go back with that soccer metaphor, like they were better kickers of the ball to begin with. They invested just like everybody else on the team, but now look at where they are. So I hope you guys hold on to this. The study is an example, and think about it. Think about this. Come back to this idea during different parts of your career development and your professional development, and think, where are these areas of talent? Where are these areas that I shine? How can I invest in them to get up to this level of excellence? So I often coach with this assessment called Clifton Strengths, named after the guy that I just told you, the father of strength psychology, Don Clifton. It previously was called Strengths Finder, and they just rebranded it because it was a little bit confusing. It was the Clifton Strengths Finder assessment. But if you look up Strengths Finder 2.0, it's been the best-selling book on Amazon, on their nonfiction list of all time. And the reason why I want to tell you guys about it is I learned that you guys can get complimentary access codes from UNLV's Career Services, which is amazing. So here's what this assessment does, and here's why I want you guys to learn about it. And here's how it helps with your self-awareness, which is our topic of this webinar, right? So it's a timed assessment. It's not a personality test, okay, guys? So I'm gonna help you with that from straight out the gate. It's not a personality test. What this is a performance tool. So you use this directly for performance. And you answer 177 paired questions. You're going to answer them with a gut reaction, right? So just trust your gut on this. This is how it's measuring natural talent inside of you. It's measuring your natural reactions. And once you finish this assessment, you answer all 177 timed questions. Most people say it takes them about a half an hour, maybe a little bit longer. It gives you, what it does behind the scenes is it takes all of these data points of talent, right? And this is through like 5 decades of researching this and rehoning the assessment and putting it out into the working world all over the world, and checking validity and all of that stuff. So I can tell you guys, I feel good about talking this. It's statistically valid, and it has been used time and time again for success. And what it does is it takes all these different data points of raw talent that can exist inside of people, and where those different data points are clustered into groups, they go ahead and name that group. They give it a name to help it make sense of all the different types of talent that can be a part of that group. And so they call these your talent themes. So that's why I put up this slide. This is a fun little, word cloud that was created that talks about, or it names all the different talent themes. And there are 34. And so if you take this, if you get this access code, usually I will say, I tell everybody to start with just your top 5. So you can pay to access just your top 5 talent themes, or you can pay to access all 34. I tell everybody who's starting from the beginning, just go top 5. Why? Because it helps you narrow your lens. It helps you not feel overwhelmed. And it helps you, if you think about these as tools in your toolbox, your top 5 tools, your top 5 talent themes that rise to the top are going to be the equivalent of the tools that are at the top of your toolbox. They're the ones that you tend to use most often, that you don't have to think about when you want to use them. So my example for this is, okay, if I pull out of my toolbox a hammer and a nail, imagine if every single time I wanted to use the hammer and the nail to hammer a nail into the wall, imagine if I had to carefully remember how to hold my fingers just so, remember how to hold the nail just so, remember how to hold the hammer just so, remember how to connect the hammer to the nail, right? Like, me telling you the precision of these steps and the intentionality is exhausting just talking about it. And this is a pretty easy task, right? Most people can pick it up pretty easily. If you've ever hit your thumb with a hammer, I'm sorry, because I have also done that, and I'm not making fun of you. But in general, we can say that is something that usually we don't have to give a lot of thought to if we've done it a few times. That's my idea of your top 5 talent themes. You're actually using them without giving thought to them. That's why this is a professional development tool, because it's helping you, or professional, and performance is the word I used before. So it is helping you develop these areas of natural talent to better your performance, if that makes sense. So once you've identified your top 5 talent themes, you'll get a report. There are a few different steps that you can do. I recommend sharing your reports with other people and getting insight from them, maybe some family members, friends, coworkers, peers, people who know you in different contexts. And that's going to be really, really helpful to understand how people see this stuff that's inside of you, how they see it shining out to the world, right? How they see you use it. Someone may use a talent in a social setting in a very different way than they do at work. And that's great information for you to use. That's great for you to know. Let's see. All right. So because there are 34 different talent themes, when I talk about the top 5, all right, this is a really cool statistic, and this is why I am calling each of you right now a shiny unicorn. And I also say this to groups of like old men. I call them shiny unicorns too, which goes over very well with a laugh. But here's the deal. If you take how math works, I don't question math, but statistically, if you think about 34 different talent themes and all of the orders that they can exist in people, you are 1 in 33 million. So to put it another way, one other person in the whole world out of 33 million will have the same top 5 talent themes as you in the exact same order. So that's a pretty powerful statistic right there. And I really really advise people to hang on to this. Like, put it in your back pocket, lock it away in the back of your mind. When you're having a day where you're just feeling down, maybe you're feeling, not unique. Maybe you're feeling not recognized, whatever it is. You're 1 in 33 million. You are super unique. You just maybe haven't identified it yet. So this is a pathway to help you identify. This is how you level up your self-awareness in this area. And you got to be a sparkly, shiny unicorn, which I love. If anyone wants to call you out on thinking you're so special, you can say, damn right I am, and here's the data to back it. And that's fun also. All right, so speaking of data, let's look at some of these numbers. I'm not going to take you guys through all of this, but I do want you to feel proud of yourselves for listening to this webinar, because you are going to be a step ahead of a lot of other people. So there are, I'll say it this way. So if you look at the top numbers, so 90% of Fortune 500 companies use this assessment, right? Here's the problem. Not everyone gets access to this, right? Not a lot of people work for or have the opportunity to work for these big companies. Therefore, we don't even know that these assessments exist half the time. So now that you guys know about it, go ahead and treat yourself to this through your career services, because look at the statistic on the right of your screen. So of all the people that they've talked to around the world who were in teams where some knew and used their Clifton Strengths information and some didn't, those who know and use it are 6 times as likely to be engaged at work. So doesn't that sound nice? I think so. All right, so let's play a game. That's enough of me talking for a second. Let's look at some other slides. And I'll explain afterwards why we did this game. So a lot of times I'll do this in groups of people. If we're in person, I'll say stand up because it gets people moving around. So feel free to stand up at home. If you need to just move your body, if you're feeling a little antsy, now is a great time. I think on my screen I wrote raise your hand if, but no one's going to see what you do. So do what makes you happy. So the idea of this is if this example describes you all the time, not some of the time, but all the time. So you really have to go all in with owning this about yourself. So raise your hand if you talk to people in elevators, airplanes, grocery stores, wherever you go. You guys know who you are. And raise your hand if you always have a color-coded closet, or if it's otherwise super organized. You guys know who you are. Maybe you raise your hand for both of these. Maybe you're one or the other. Maybe you're this next one. Raise your hand if you always write down a list of things to do. And the caveat with this is you stick to it, right? That's the problem that gets me. I'm really good at writing things down. And then I just kindly somehow store it away somewhere and never find it again. So those who can write down a list and stick to it, awesome. That comes really easily for a lot of people. So here's where you get bonus points. Even on the weekend, we've got our people who have their fun lists for like Home Depot and Bed Bath & Beyond, right? Like all your weekend shopping that you have to do. So if this is always you, well, we'll talk about it in a second. All right, let's go to the next one. Raise your hand if you always need to pick someone to race while driving, right? For some people, like driving's not fun unless you're racing someone. And they don't ever need to know you're racing them either. It's just in your mind. It's just entertaining you. How about if you ask a lot of questions? So right now, I would be standing on top of my table to show how much this is me. This has always been me. I don't know how I don't know how to not be this. Some of these things, you can get a fun laugh because it's like breathing for you, right? You don't know how to turn it off. Here's the last one. This one's such a crack up. So raise your hand if you push the elevator button. Probably if you're doing the second time, I'm going to guess you're doing like a third, fourth, and fifth time to remind it that you're there. And then I love the people who want to inform Or like I'll do this sometimes at the corner of an intersection, right? And you press the button to cross at the crosswalk, and then like other people come up. And you're like, I got it, guys. Don't worry. I press the button 5 times. It knows we're waiting. All right. So why do we do this exercise? Or here, I'll go back to this one. So these are all clues of natural talent inside of people. So this is a fun way of thinking about little tiny moments in our lives that we don't pay attention to most of the time, and how we can actually use these moving forward, right? So for example, if you raise your hand to always feeling that competitive edge, right? Always wanting to race other cars when you're driving, that could be a great sign to pay attention to, that maybe you're really motivated to get your work done when you can have a competitive edge to your work. And that doesn't always have to be against each other or against another team. It could be against yourself, right? You could say, oh, I completed this project in 1 month last year. I'm going to try and do it in 3 weeks this year. So sometimes just creating that competitive environment, that it's sort of like fulfilling that natural need, can be that energizing factor to help you be more engaged in the work that you do. Same thing with, let's see, what else do I want to talk about? The list one, right? There are some people at work who are just known for being the list people. If you get known for being that, do you know how amazing that is? Like, people are going to come to you and say, okay, you know what? After that meeting, I missed a part where we were talking about the next steps. Can you go through your list with me? Like, that's so much value that you're bringing to your team. Same with this slide that's on the screen right now, right? If you're pressing that elevator button to remind it that you're there, you might have this need for really wanting to lead a group of people, right? And kind of like taking command, taking charge, taking the reins, if you will. And that's a great thing to know about yourself. That can be used really well in leadership roles, even if you're not a leader, right? Or I should say, even if your title doesn't say you're not a leader, because I actually believe everyone's a leader. But if your title isn't a manager or a C-level position or whatever, who cares? You can still take the reins. You can still be a leader for your own team. So I hope this helps you guys. When we did the 5 questions in the beginning, those are like a little bit deeper, right? Those are kind of more meaningful questions. And then these are kind of little bite-sized examples. But you can go through both of those on your own and think about all of these examples, all of these questions. And it leads me to my next slide of thinking about your past to inform your future, right? So do some assessing at home. When you think about these moments that you've had in the past, maybe really successful moments, what does it tell you about all of these different things? What does it tell you about how you build relationships, how you manage things you're responsible for? What does it tell you about what motivates you or what gives you energy to do? What does it tell you about how you think and process information and how you influence others? All right, so I'll leave this back up for one more second in case you guys are writing down these questions. So again, this is an idea of thinking about moments of success from your past, right? And it doesn't, I mean, if you guys are sitting here like, Paige, you're a crazy lady. I'm at this university. I haven't had a job yet. What are you talking about moments of success? No, this doesn't have to be in a certain job or a certain role. Like, these could be moments of success that you had in college. These could be moments of success that you had in high school or even younger, like things that you're proud of or things that you felt like were just a really, you know, like kind of a cool thing that you accomplished maybe. So draw upon all of these different things from your life and ask yourself these questions, right? Ask yourself what energizes you, what motivates you. How do you process information? How do you build relationships? Use that information to move forward, to inform how you go about life intentionally. All right, so this is our last section. We're going to talk values for a second. And if anyone has done value exercises, cool, like stick with what you've done, or maybe use this as an opportunity to think a little bit deeper. The cool thing for me, so I talked to you guys a lot about these natural talents inside of us and how they're kind of built into our DNA. And so we've kind of been this way maybe our whole lives, even though we haven't really thought about it, and we probably haven't used it intentionally, but now we know we have it in us, we can, right? So that's that. Values is a different story. Values aren't written into our DNA always. A lot of times values are passed down to us, maybe by family members, maybe by peer groups that we grew up with, maybe by a religion or a certain culture that we identify with, maybe by just the street or block that we grew up on. These all are influences for our values. But the really cool thing is as we get older, we can change our values. We can maybe let go of some values that we thought were important to us, or maybe we hadn't questioned that they were just passed down, but maybe now they're not doing us much service. We can grow. Like, this is when I think about like a growth mentality, right? Or a growth mindset, like that's one of the best things about it. It's like, it gives us permission to just constantly get better and reassess and change and maybe say, okay, that was a mistake, or that was a bad idea, or that just didn't serve me. Let's think about what values are meaningful for me today. Fresh start. So I'm putting a bunch up on the screen right now because I know that a lot of times it can be hard to think about these from, just blue sky, from thin air. And a great exercise to do is, aside from tonight, just Google lists of values. There are lists that exist on the internet. I'm a fan of Brené Brown. So if anyone knows her stuff from her latest book, Dare to Lead, she actually has a values list that you can download that's pretty awesome. I'll give her a shout out. And I would go through and select maybe the top 10 or 12 that speak to you. And then do some really hard digging, because this is quite difficult for a lot of people, is to really get to your top, probably like 5 that are your non-negotiables, maybe even 3. I like to be nice. I say 5. It's hard to choose, but find out your non-negotiables. And then once you find those, think about how they influence or activate your strengths. So I had a friend who's another coach give me this example the other day that I liked. And he said, my strength, I use my strengths to act out my values. So for example, one of his strengths is in strategy. So he's a really high strategic thinker. And one of his really high values is family. And he decided it wasn't worth it for him to have a job or an office. This was pre-COVID-19, where a lot of us are in a brand new world of working from home. This was prior. And he said, I really want to, find a job, a new job opportunity that's closer to home. And so he tapped in to execute on that value of family. He tapped into his strategic thinking and did all of his research on he works at a university, and he did all of his research on all of his thinking, on all of the university openings, the job openings, and strategized what made most sense of what accounted for his degree and his qualifications, what would be a fun job for him, and what would be close to home. So that's an example of how he leaned into his strengths to execute on his values. Oh, I forgot my little arrows there. Yep. So they interact with each other, which is super fun. So when you guys think about writing up your personal brand statement, here are some great questions to think about. And I'll talk you guys through this a little bit. If anyone hasn't done a brand statement exercise, I didn't learn about this until I don't know, my mid 30s. So don't feel bad if you've never done this before. Although I don't know, maybe it's trendy and a lot of people are doing it right now. But it's a really cool exercise because the reason in my opinion, and maybe you'll learn, different reasons for the value of this. But to me, the reason why I do the work that I do is because I want to bring a human element to the workplace. I want people to feel comfortable stating, this is who I am as a human being. I am here wholeheartedly, right? I don't have to separate my personal life from my work life. That's a lot of historically where we have been at work. And especially, I come from corporate America prior to this coaching business that I now do. And, it was seen as like, you're too touchy-feely or you're too, weak, emotional. I don't even know the right words, but you were supposed to separate your personal life from your work life. And I call BS on that. So I'm trying to help people feel more like humans, be more engaged, be treated as humans by their leaders and their managers. And your brand statement is a great way of saying that. This is your way of saying, this is how I show up at work. This is who I am. See me. This is my value that I bring to you. Your privilege to be, in my orbit at this moment. This is my purpose. These are my experiences. These are my natural talents. This is what I want to accomplish. So all of these questions that you see on this screen, answer these and spend some time with these. I think this whole idea of what do I want to be known for, question number 4, it's kind of one of my favorites because I feel like even if you're not in a phase of your life where you can look forward and think, what do I want to accomplish? What's my purpose? I think sometimes it's easier to look back and think, if someone was, writing up a summary of your life, what do you want to be known for? What do you want your legacy to be? It's a really, really powerful question to give thought to. And then once you've answered some of these questions, now you get to incorporate the work that we just did. Those last 40 minutes are going to be really useful in integrating into this brand statement. What strengths do you bring to the table? What are your values? Again, what do you stand for, right? When others truly see you, when you feel really, really seen, what is it that they're seeing in you? And so a personal brand statement doesn't have to be very long, doesn't have to be a whole Word document. It could be like 3 sentences, it could be a small paragraph. But this is for you to carry. You don't ever have to read it fully to anyone or read it in an interview or anything like that. But this is for you to know. This is for you to carry mentally in your back pocket. And people know when you show up to work with intention, when you show up to community service and leadership and serving your community and, being a role model and being a valued teammate, people see when you show up with intention. And leveling up your self-awareness is a great way to live your life intentionally. So with that, I thank you, and I would love to open it up to questions. I'll exit out of this so I can see if we have any questions. Oh my goodness, there's good chat. So maybe you guys can help me if there's questions that I should jump to in here. Someone put hashtag shower thoughts. I like that. I want to know what that conversation was about. Oh, this is funny. I'm horrible at sticking to lists. This is from some of our exercises. I love this.
So the shower thought one page was about, sometimes you're thinking about how do you do something really well. You were saying I think it's the one that had to do with excellence. That slide. I can't remember what the exact words were, but something about excellence.
Yeah. And so you were saying you're excellent at shower thoughts?
No. Glimpses of excellence. That's when I get my glimpses of excellence sometime is when
I love it.
like shower thoughts. I just think it's because it's like this space where you're, well, I don't know about anybody else, but for me, it's like a space where, I'm kind of relaxed, but I'm also kind of alone with my thoughts. And, sometimes I'm just like, oh,
yes,
so that's how that works or how that happens.
100%. Do you know why I think that is so great to talk about is because you're removed from visual stimuli, right? Like when you're in the shower, hopefully you're not looking at your phone because now you've just ruined your phone because you got it wet. You're not, maybe we're listening to the radio or something like that, but really, like, that's amazing time to have by yourself. And that's great. That's great to have some of those aha moments. I love that you talked about that.
Yeah. So that's what hashtag shower thoughts was about.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so you're welcome. I'm just writing back in the chat. You said, I've learned a lot and will apply this to my work and my everyday life. Thank you for saying that. And I'm happy that helped. Does anyone else have questions? Or if you guys want me to elaborate on a topic, we've got 5 more minutes. I'm happy to help y'all. I'll also put my email is paige@glassalwaysfull.com. So I put that in the chat. If any of you guys want to email me or ask me any further questions, I'm more than happy to help. You also have these lovely people with UNLV Career Services who can also help you on this subject.
I have a question.
Cool.
I was just wondering, like, what if you, at the moment, you can't think, because it was one of something, the flow. Like, what if you can't think of something that you flow doing at the moment? Like some of the stuff I just haven't quite pinpointed what I'm, what I can do when that flows, because probably I never paid attention.
Yes. You hit the nail on the head, and thank you so much for asking that. And thanks for being brave enough to unmute yourself to ask that. I love it because that's a really, really valid question and a question that I get a lot. So thank you. And you kind of almost answered your own question by saying maybe I haven't thought about it enough. I think if we do, go take a shower tonight, have some great shower thoughts. We're going to bring this conversation full circle. But I think if you do give yourself some time, give yourself time and space. If you're feeling frustrated, stop thinking about it for a little bit and come back in a day or two and maybe ask some people who know you well, right? We can get great insight. I love calling this outward insight, right? It's like this outward looking in, but we can get really great insight from other people who have known us in different situations. And so you could even ask some people, have you ever seen me kind of like in the flow during some work that I've been doing or during an activity or maybe a hobby, right? A lot of times if we tap into why we like hobbies so much and what we get out of them and how they energize us, that can give us a lot of clues towards how we want to do our work and what kind of work we want to do. So I think just give yourself a little grace and give yourself some time to think about it. But I think some stuff will come up.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope that helped.
It did. Thank you.
It's not the most fun answer to tell people to be patient. But I really the reason why this stuff can be frustrating in the beginning, and it is hard to think of answers. And that's why I say, just write down the questions and take them home with you, because we haven't been given permission a lot of times to think about this stuff, right? Or just given the opportunities, I should say. So this is my gift to you guys, is I want to present you with these opportunities so that now you can be aware of how you think about this. Okay, I have one more idea for you, actually. So what you could do, if you can't think of things in the past, what you could do is start to be, this takes a lot of effort, so buckle in, but start to be crazy intentional with, or thoughtful, I guess I'll say, with your next few days or your next week or next month, and think through, How am I doing this activity? What's energizing me? What's not energizing me? A lot of times it's easier to kind of narrow down the field by things that drain us. And then that can also give you clues. So maybe just if you could be a little bit more intentional with, your present and your immediate future, if looking at the past is a little bit more difficult. Does anyone else have a question? For you people who tuned in tonight, I appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in from 7 to 8 p.m. on a Wednesday night. That's rock solid right there.
Thank you. And it's